Being one of the early children of the United Contractors, I remember my father going to meetings. Those guys would get together at some downtown restaurant in San Jose. I'm sure Manhattans and Old Fashions were important, and some of the spaghetti, because it was always at an Italian restaurant. They were all relatively small contractors. My father had one backhoe, and they didn't have the voice of some of the bigger organizations that were out there doing all the negotiations. And so they felt very constricted as to what they could do and what they could say. And I think that that was part of their conversation, was just, we need to be able to at least have a voice in the conversation.
I started for the association back in 1981. Back then we had no computers, it was all typewriters and such. What I remember is having the members come in and talk about what they were up against, the different challenges, what they needed help with. We worked together to solve the problems of our members. That was an exciting time because we were exposed to every aspect of running an association as a very young staff. We're ready to take on the world.
So my father started this organization with a small group of guys with the intent of trying to open the door so that they had a voice with the unions.
John Pissan at that time was executive director. John called me one day and said that he wanted to meet with the plumbers. And we sit down at this big table, and John and this guy across the table started arguing, and they started yelling at each other, and then John reached across the table and grabbed him and was going to punch him. I'd have thought, Jesus, it's just like the movies. We started trying to grow the association. I think in 3 or 4 years, we almost doubled the membership. It wasn't until the 1980s where we started getting enough members and enough clout to have the organized labor actually listen to what we needed to have done.
And at some point along the line, they finally got to the table to negotiate with the unions, and I don't know that they ever thought that they would ever really get there. That was the initial drive, was the union negotiation, and from there, what else can we accomplish?
United Contractors solely representing union contractors is really important. I think the unions appreciate that. We're friends in the industry and very supportive of each other.
So one of the great things about this association is they have kept the small companies in mind. So when Stacy and Whitbeck was still a small company, we didn't have a lot of people in our main office. So we needed help at times where we had to call the association and say, hey, we got this issue and we don't want to go to court, and who could you point us to where we could get those answers? So that meant a lot to us.
The organization doesn't just take risk, it seems that it embraces it. The craziest decision they ever made was to hire me as a 27-year-old CEO. So there I am as the new CEO. I go meet with the new president, and he says, hey, don't worry about it, Mark. You'll be fine. Just remember, though, if you don't succeed, your name will just blow away like dirt in the wind. I was terrified. So courage and risk-taking for the organization means there's always something ahead. So first it was labor relations, and we built that out. And then was government relations. Then it's leadership education for the entire industry from foreman to CEO. Every step of the way, there's always one more thing that we're going towards. SB1 was just a perfect example of the idea that we can move the entire marketplace if we can unify the industry.
When I began on the board with this association, growth was a big topic. Growth is challenging, growth is scary, and we were just talking about growing maybe to Sacramento. And now we're looking at the whole state.
Seems fitting on our 50th year that we would be representing the entire state of California. And the idea that we are going to be in the leadership role of promoting and building the infrastructure of this state for the next 50 years is pretty exciting and pretty important.
So this organization has accomplished so much over the years. I mean, to think that they have leadership development programs now, and they secured over $90 billion worth of public works construction projects.
I think what makes UConn different than other associations is we feel like family.
I hope that
in the future that people will still be true to what we stand for, which is each other. And I think that if people will do that in the future, that this organization's potential is unlimited.
The future for United Contractors is strong. We'll continue to grow and continue to do the right things.
My hopes for this association is that it will continue on for the next 50 years, that it will rise to every occasion, that it won't be afraid to try something different, that it won't measure itself on what other associations are doing.
My great hope is that we can get all the union contractors in California to be members of our association, so we have one powerful voice about what we're going to do and what we're going to build.
I think the founders today would just be amazed at what's been accomplished. It's so important to maintain the culture that we had, which was a small company culture, but with big company capabilities. And as long as it keeps that culture, I think UConn will continue to be a driving force in the construction industry.